Hi, Samara here, Addie's mom, the T1D mama. I am finally gonna tell you guys Addie's diagnosis story. Addie was diagnosed when she was 14 months old. So it was a little bit past her first birthday. It was March of 2021. It was peak COVID times. So just remember that, because that's kind of important for the story. There wasn't a lot of signs. Everybody asks, what were the signs? How did you know? How did you find out? Especially like other mothers want to know what to look out for. And I've shared a few times the signs of type 1 diabetes, which would be frequent urination, excessively thirsty, excessively hungry, sudden weight loss, children experience like bedwetting or like too many diapers, things like that. So type 1 diabetes, the onset is very sudden, so it happens like that. Week before she got sick, I noticed that she lost a little bit of weight. Her clothes were fitting more looser, but I kind of just chalked it up to like a growth spurt of some sort. And with that as well, she was also eating a lot more. And I was like, growth spurt, right? Because I literally had no idea about type 1 diabetes at all, or diabetes in general. My mom made a comment one time about her, oh, she's really thirsty. And I was like, oh, she just really likes water. She drinks a lot all the time. Like, I really no idea. Didn't put them all together. It wasn't until one night she threw up her milk bottle that I had just given her. We were in the middle of transitioning her from breast milk to cow's milk. We thought it was time. And so she was drinking, several ounces of milk, and she vomited it all up. I started thinking maybe she has a milk allergy, or maybe she just has a stomach flu. I don't know. I kind of just let her rest and didn't give her any more milk. The next morning, she seemed better. She seemed okay. But we gave her milk again, and she threw it up again. And this had been at, I don't know, probably the fourth time that she threw up after, giving her 2 milk bottles. So I was in the shower with her, just cleaning the vomit off of her, and she just looked so sick. And then I noticed her breathing was weird. It was different. And I'm holding her and looking at her, and I'm like, God, like, I could see her ribs. Like, she's lost a few pounds. I mean, she was only 20 pounds or so. So she loses like a pound or 2. I could really tell that on her. Got concerned because her breathing was a huge like sign that something was wrong for me. And I didn't think it was because she was throwing up. I thought COVID, I thought, oh, she's sick. Like that's what I thought. And I was freaking out about the fact that she might have COVID. I was very nervous. My niece had a sleepover at our house the night before, and I had to call her mom to come pick her up because I had to take Addie to the ER. And my partner, Addie's dad at the time, he stayed home with our other kids. I have 3 kids. So he stayed home while I went to the ER with Addie. And I was so scared. I called my sister and I asked her to give me a ride to the ER. I did not have a car at the time. It was a very, very difficult time during COVID, where like he had lost his job, I lost my car, like a lot of like crappy things were happening. They were trying to increase our rent, and we just were trying to dig ourselves out of like this hole. And then like I got sick. My sister picked me up, took me to the ER. She's throwing up in the car. She keeps looking like she's gonna fall asleep. I was so scared because she kept throwing up, and I know she had nothing in her stomach, so it was just like nothing. But we got to the hospital. I'm literally shaking because I don't do well in situations like this, especially when she's like my 1-year-old, my baby. You know, I've never had both of my children, my older children, or healthy. They've never been like really sick instead of like the flu, or I've never stayed in the hospital with them, other than when they were born. I was really, really scared to be at the ER. Progressively got worse as like the day went on. And so like in the car at the hospital was probably like, or in the car on the way to the hospital was probably like the worst that she was, because she was looking pretty rough. She had thrown up like on all her clothes and on the towel that I had, and I had nothing left to clean her up with. And so I was like, please don't throw up, because I brought everything that I brought, I had wiped her up with it and it was already covered in vomit. I was just praying to God that she didn't throw up again until we got to the hospital. We get to the hospital, I go to the ER, they get her in right away. They test her for COVID. She didn't have COVID. They checked some, her vitals, her signs. She was just laying there on the hospital bed, almost asleep, and she wasn't talking, she wasn't moving, she was just like very close to a diabetic coma. But I didn't know that until the doctor came back. We weren't there very long before the doctor came back with some of the test results, and he told me that her blood sugar was in the 600s, and it's a good thing I brought her in when I did. And he started hitting me with all his information about what we're gonna do, and I was just shaking, and I had to tell him to stop because I needed to call her dad, because I could not process any of the information that he was saying to me. So I'm crying, I can barely breathe, I'm shaking, I'm riddled with anxiety. I honestly had this close to asking for like an oxygen mask or a bag or something, but I called my partner and I told him what they said. I told him what's going on, and he was surprisingly like, oh, okay, type 1 diabetes, okay. He had prior experience with type 1 diabetes, and so he was familiar with it. I was not. Zero experience with type 1 diabetes as well, so I think that's why he wasn't as freaked out as I was. So they told me they were gonna transfer Addie to the hospital that had the pediatric intensive care unit, the PQ, and we had to ride by ambulance to the hospital, which is about 40 minutes away, because they were gonna admit her. They had to get her blood sugars down. They had to give her fluids and monitor her. We ride in the back of the ambulance. Addie falls asleep. We're hooked on an IV. She fell asleep in the back of the ambulance. I rode back there with her. It was very surreal to see her little body strapped to the ambulance. The bed, the stretcher, I don't know. Because she was so small, and they had to put like all these like inserts and straps on it to get her to fit in there. When we got to the hospital, we met with lots of doctors and nurses right away, got us comfortable. It was super intense because I had no idea what was going on. Because her blood sugar was so high, the doctor told us that they had to slowly lower her blood sugars to prevent her brain from bleeding. What? Yeah, so very close to a diabetic coma. Her brain could bleed. So that's what they did. And while they did that, she couldn't eat. I couldn't nurse her. She had her IV. It wasn't, I think, until like the second or third day that she was able to have some food, and I was able to nurse her. The hospital was great. All the nurses were great checking on her. The training that we had at the hospital was pretty decent. They told us what we needed to know, with lots of people from our endocrinology team there at the hospital, and just enough to go home, and they taught us about insulin and a little bit about how insulin works. And they, taught us how to give her shots because she was so small and so little that the doctor asked us if we were comfortable with drawing up 0.25 units of insulin in the syringe. And 0.25, if you see it on a spoon, it is so small. It is so small. So gratefully, her dad was pretty easily able to look and eyeball it, and he got it right where the doctor said that's 0.25, right between the 0 and the 0.5 mark on the needle. So he was really good about drawing up exactly 0.25 units of insulin. And still, when we gave her that, it was too much insulin for some stuff. So I think her ratio that we began out with was 20 carbs, was 0.25 units. But I noticed really quickly that 0.25 units might cover 30 carbs, or it might cover 10 carbs. Like, the carbs were different. So the training that we got there was pretty good. I would have liked some additional resources. I had to find like a podcast, Juicebox podcast, and some Facebook groups to join to really get more information that I was looking for. And then I really just did my own research too about like how insulin works and other things like that, and the different carbs, and just through trial and error, really letting what works for her. That's how we did it. We were in the hospital for 3 days, I believe, and it was very scary, very stressful. My partner and I, we argued. I remember us screaming at each other at one point, and it was just like insane, because it's like, what are we doing? Like, but we both knew why we were acting like this. The amount of stress that we were going through at that time was insane. I don't know how we took that on. I don't know how we made it through what we did. Sorry. We like literally broke up last week. We made it through probably the hardest years of our lives. At least for me, that was the most stressful time of my life. When she was sick and when she got diagnosed. But anyways, they sent us home with a lot of supplies. I want to say on the 3rd day, she finally had her blood sugars in range, and she was talking and she was walking again, and that was great. So they safely got her blood sugars down, but it was very scary. Very sleepless nights, very much just not knowing what was going to happen. And realizing that like our whole lives were literally changing. And my life changed. My life changed that day.